Okay, so yeah, we already started with a little introduction about myself and Niels. So we as a team are currently here at the Academy and developing the tools and setups for yeah, our VR performances that we will introduce. Maybe one thing to add, our label and group um, that we're working with is called Minus Eins. Um, and yeah, like one of the projects we will give you a really like a very rough and quick overview. The focus is, as Dirk already said, on das Haus 0.1. The whole thing is planned as some sort of like work in progress. So the idea really is to, you know, get enough time to develop tools, to do different tryouts, and on different stages make some smaller or bigger productions, developing on like what we developed in the meantime, and also of course yeah, are there collaborations and stuff going on, or is it just a short demonstration um, for the state of things? So the house 0.1 was pretty much the beginning. It was like a first experimental performance installation where we tried to take theater theater production into VR. We started with pretty much figuring out what are the tools that we sort of like already worked with, what's still out there that we didn't work with, what are the upsides, the downsides to different tools. Um, and we finally decided to work on the basis of Mozilla Hubs. I will also tell you a little bit about this platform. Of course, there are also other platforms out there, and there are, as always in life, there are downsides and like pros and cons to working with hubs compared to other systems and tools as well. For now, we will jump into the first iteration, which was called the House 0.1. It was a co-production between Minus Eins, Schauspiel Dortmund, and the Academy for Theatre and Digitality. Maybe Niels can play a little video. It just gives a very quick impression. As you will see, like our goal here was really, you know, to find quick and accessible tools to get and create VR environments pretty much in a DIY approach, you know. So we already had a production planned, which due to Corona couldn't take place as intended. So pretty much in the end, there was a much smaller time frame, and we said, okay, let's go use this time and develop VR tools, but start with the people, the know-how, also the actors that we already had. So this was mainly the focus, not try to get too fancy and wild with visuals, but rather try to find out what are the already the skills and tools, you know, that we had in the ensemble. So we had stage designers that had no experiences in 3D design. We had costume designers that didn't really work in 3D. So we pretty much experimented, you know, how can they use what they already know, and like for most part, just use our smartphones, try to scan the assets, get them into VR quickly and easily. And therefore we also went for some sort of a low poly glitch aesthetics. This is like running through one of the earlier levels right now, where you can see the recreation of like the parts of the city of Dortmund, so mainly the area around the theater. And just as a quick note, like what was the overall experience for the audience? So we took them on a tour, which was part, like a real tour, part semi-fictional narratives that were woven into this. We started in the VR variant of the theater area, which in our tour was in the shutdown for almost 2 years already. So we had strange characters going around or being present in the stage that were telling stories. There were shops that, like in reality were still open, that were closed. We had signs of demonstrations that might have happened years ago and stuff like this. So yeah, one of the focus was also like how to use environments for storytelling, things like this, but also to utilize motion capture, where again the focus was more on how can we make it accessible as easily as possible rather than make the most precise sort of motion capture. So we tried to give the actors the chance to to not have to wear huge motion capture suits or gloves and headsets, but pretty much to use their own rehearsal dressing. They could wear a t-shirt and their own clothing and stand in front of a neutral wall, and we used like depth cameras to motion track them. Yeah. Story-wise, we were taking the audience from the city into the theater, where more and more there was a mixture between fact and fiction. So there should have happened an ominous play, stage production, which sort of like disappeared. It is called Das Haus, and we're sort of like going on the tracks and traces of this lost production. What we can see here, it's a little bit stuttering, but this is due to the video capturing on the hardware. So yeah, usually if you go into the VR experience, it should be much smoother. Yeah. So yeah. So like a small wrap up. What were the main goals for this first iteration? It was using tools that are broadly available and give all sorts of departments at the theater the way to access it, to use them, and go and create things pretty much. Another thing that we were really interested in early on, especially, like this was already a time where first theaters started to do live streamings. I myself, as I mentioned earlier, was working with live streaming theater for quite some time. And so I was pretty familiar already with the benefits, on the possibilities, but also the downsides maybe. Some things that I often experience is or what's missing is like all the social aspects. So we pretty much try to create this whole approach that you really get a sense as an audience to be together in a room with other audience members as well as with actors and the whole production, and you can communicate about it. We also recreated the bar area of the Schauspiel, which funnily enough is always like one of the most inhabited places. You would think you cannot really order a bar as well, especially not a good one in VR, but it's really about the social situation. You meet there before the play starts, you meet there afterwards. We also had a dance floor where our musician sort of like presented a virtual party, and we had people that met up there after the performance, and they were dancing together and really hung out, sort of like explored the whole scenes on their own, stuff like this. So this was really important for us. Another important thing is we didn't really, or didn't merely want to just recreate, what's already possible in the theater on the stage and stream it, but we are constantly trying to enhance the possibilities of storytelling through VR. I think, of course, it's possible to take a stage production and put it there, but there are so much more ways to get interactive, participatory, or even utilize tools from movie productions, like cuts, camera movements, all the sort, VFX, if you want to. So this is something, yeah, that was also important to us. And yeah, next thing was, how can we make it easily accessible? I was already talking about, like who is working in the theater and how can we make it easy to them, but also for the audience. So this was a major point for us to go with Mozilla Hubs. I will come to Mozilla Hubs in a short time, but one main advantage was that it's browser-based. You don't need to download and install something or register first. It is something that usually is not a huge deal for younger audiences. At least if they played games once or twice, they are familiar with this. But we are always happy to invite younger audiences or new audience to theater, but we don't want to lose the established audience, like yeah, overall. So this is something that's usually important. So how can you get them into the experience quickly if they're not familiar with 3D games and stuff like this? Yeah, for the house 0.1, as you might have seen, it was also important for us to try out different approaches. It was rather go experimental and try this in that area and a completely different approach in another area to really get familiar with the tools and see while doing what works for whom. Like actors were suddenly fascinated with filming them through an Asia Kinect camera, and they could start to play with their costumes, and they had weird glitches in the camera because they were presented as a 3D capture, and they started to play around with this. So we were, yeah, at first we saw this as a glitch, and a mistake, but then we discovered, oh, this is very interesting for them. But we also tried other approaches to 3D scan them and had their motion captured. We tried to record performances, have performance live, and really find out what's working best. Or maybe what's not working so well, at least for now. Yeah, so Mozilla Hubs, in our view, gave us the most possibilities, but there are also some disadvantages. So I'm going to mention some of this. So as I already said, one thing that really drew us towards Mozilla Hubs is, like, Mozilla Hubs, maybe just a short explanation. It is the basic engine and tool setup, which already gives you this 3D environment, but it's more focused towards having, like meetings in VR and really small rooms. So it's not really meant for theater production. So we did a lot of programming, especially Niels, to yeah, develop new tools. We will show you some of them. But it's a really small glimpse. But we also will have a Q&A, so you can ask questions if you want to know more. So it's open source, everyone can use it, everyone can take it, work and improve on it. It has a really, really strong community that is constantly trying to improve the setup. And yeah, maybe the biggest thing in general is that it's browser-based. One thing I might also mention, so you can really just start your browser, jump right in, but you can also use your VR headset. You can just, yeah, connect it to your computer, click on join via VR headset, and you can fully utilize VR. So there are also some things to consider when using Mozilla Hubs. So the first thing is it is not really made for cutting edge graphics. This is not to say that you cannot really accomplish, you know, like you can scan real-time environments and put them in there, and you can really accomplish a lot of great graphics. Our approach always was not to aim for this. You know, we really we rather try to work with this glitch aesthetic or develop our own aesthetics, which are not really realistic. But of course you could do it, but it's not what Mozilla Hubs originally is made for. So there probably will be trade-offs. You really have to play around with it, depending on how many users you have, how much media data you have, you know. So if you want to have 16 4K live stream videos and high quality graphic, like for the environments, you probably will have some issues, at least on some computers and some internet connections and stuff. So you really need to find the right balance for what you're trying. Yeah, like for those of you who have some experience in 3D design, one thing I would advise you to consider in Mozilla Hubs is like the poly count, you know. So you usually wouldn't want to go in there with really high amount of polygons. So rather try to work with low poly and have nice textures. Another thing to consider, currently it is not really possible to have more than 30, sometimes 50 people together in one room. This does not mean that you can't have more people in general, you know, like in the same environment, but only 30 to 50 will be able to see each other and communicate each other and interact with each other. So you can, of course, have yeah, a lot of copies of one room, and people are able to join it. So they will pretty much be in the same environment, see the same videos, see the same live streams, but only 30 are in this instance of the room together. This is constantly also being developed. There are also some setups which already allow up to 100 people and stuff like this. So it's constantly being updated. But at this point in time, I would rather suggest 30 to 50 people. Maybe Liz has some newer updates. Yeah. And maybe another thing is that for theater production, as I said, it's not mainly developed for this. So not everything you would probably need for creating theater is working out of the box. Since it's an open framework, there are a lot of possibilities to develop it, you know, and create your own code and stuff like this. Also, the community, as I said, and Mozilla Hubs itself, they are pretty open. They are very interested in theater. So at this point in time, we are all, for a couple of weeks now, cooperating with Mozilla Hubs. So we are also like developers on our own branches for the Mozilla Hubs software right now. They were reaching out to us, and they are really at this point in time trying to help us and push developments that help us to create theater performances. So this will become a bigger focus for the platform in the near future. Okay, maybe just a short note on alternatives, something that is quite similar, but maybe it's easier to get more high fidelity graphics in there, and maybe even to have more interaction with the environment already as a part of the software. It's VR chat. Is a very common tool that also is planning to go browser-based, but it's not able to do that at the moment, but it's something that you might to consider. We already, also we also used it as well. And of course, you know, there are pretty much a lot of engines you could like pretty much use just Unity as an engine and create your own yeah, platform and have all the tools and yeah, pretty much do with it whatever you want, but it's of course a lot more effort. So this was a very, very short and quick overview over the first iteration of Das Haus 0.1. I also want to mention the second iteration. So like building on what we created for this first performance, we collaborated with Ars Electronica Festival 2020 to create a virtual festival pretty much for Ars Electronica. And in like part of this was also to have a small next part of Das Haus, where the focus was yeah, like sort of like a complete different one than in the first iteration. So it was less on getting performance into VR, but more to focus on environmental storytelling, enhance the graphical possibilities. As you can see, it's still very low poly, but it's yeah a different form of aesthetics that we developed in together with Ars Electronica for the whole festival. But we also tried to create different sorts of animations, as you can see here, and you will also see the new a new iteration of the so-called house, where we tried to have different ways to create visuals. So we had, in this case, Tobias Wüstefeld from Talking Animals Collective, and he's a 3D designer that is drawing in 3D. So yeah, we really try to make it as, you know, handcrafted as possible. So he's using motion tracking devices to draw 3D environments. So we also try to work with this, incorporate that, working with impossible structures. So once you go into the house, the house becomes much bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. So yeah, we were focusing on those elements. And the whole Ars Electronica, maybe this is also interesting, you know, the focus, of course, for the whole festival was not so much on theater, but more to how can you present art projects, science projects in 3D, in VR in general. So Ars Electronica 2020 decided to go online, like for the whole festival, and have 4 live streaming channels, which were sort of like TV channels that reported on different aspects of the festival. And the other part was Mozilla Hubs and the VR experience. And we were like responsible for creating like around 30 rooms for Ars Electronica itself, where there were different projects presented, streamings, talks and presentations, and also create the whole server setup. This was also mainly Neil's part for, in general, more than 100 rooms of project partners, gallery spaces, project spaces, conference rooms, interactive environments and stuff like this. Yes. Okay, I was already talking about the visuals, you know, like as you could probably already see, we will shortly now post a link so you can all of you might join us. I will say a few sentences before this, but as you could see, we again try to really use low fidelity sort of like aesthetics to have more freedom in how big and we use the space, creative spaces, how much media we use, and also again make it as accessible as possible. You know, in principle, you can also use your smartphone and join Mozilla Hubs. But if you go too fancy with your visuals and 3D elements and aesthetics, you will probably lose some people on older machines and stuff. So we were really trying to focus on getting more people into the experience rather than having cutting edge graphics. Yeah, and I think I'm also talking for Niels too, but we are more interested in, yeah, you could compare it to indie game aesthetics and graphics rather than a AAA high fidelity for theater. But yeah, there are different approaches. You can, by now, if you really, even if you're only using open source tools like Blender and yeah, sort of like open source tools like Unity, or let's say free tools like Unity, you can really accomplish a lot of high fidelity graphics if you want to, and if you put the time in it. So yeah, it's more choice and the question of time, of course, than what's possible. Yeah, so as you can see, there is this short onboarding. Maybe Niels, you can move around a little bit. I will also watch on your screen. Yeah, like most of the things I already explained. Design-wise, we decided to have this really slick, reduced design, almost no textures, focus on color only for user guidance. To give the audience an easy way to know where to go, where to travel. What you can see here is our main lobby. So we start in a copy of the real Ars Electronica Center, and then quickly go into yeah, rooms that are fictional, that don't exist in the real world. And here you can explore in the second room where you can see the globe, the travel hub. You have different travel consoles. Maybe Niels can just approach one. And if you, yeah, you can also switch over to Zoom if you just want to see how this works. This is also part of the system we developed. Sort of, some of you still have their mics open, I think.
Ja, haben wir. Komischen grünen
Dingen. So, yeah, you can see the navigation map here, where you have this world map, and you have all the different projects under different categories that were part of. Niels already was traveling over to another room. Maybe, yeah, you can explore on your own. I will talk about maybe some sentence of the room that Niels is showing. If you want to see this, you can also come back to Zoom for a couple of, yeah, for a few seconds. So this was a room of Ars Electronica Future Lab. So they recreated their spaces, showed parts of their drone experiments in VR. So what you can see in the sky right now are, yeah, representations of their drone projects. Also another project that you can see down there, but it's not so, probably not so interesting anymore, since it's yeah, not open anymore, but we can give you an impression to our own room. We, together with Future Lab, we created a door from Mozilla Hubs to the real Future Lab center, where you could look from Hubs into the real center and communicate with people, and from the real life into the virtual spaces. Maybe Niels can switch over to our space here where we are sitting right now. We also have a VR recreation of this room and a window. If you want, you can join us in our virtual lab of the Academy. And you will also see a video of us sitting there. At the moment, due to the computer setup we are using, we have in the video a delay of I think almost 2 minutes. Yeah, which is due to the tech setup, which can be changed, but at the moment we didn't need to. So if you join there, we will be able to see you from the window in our real lab, and you will be able to see us on the other side. In Mozilla Hubs, since our mics are currently off, you can also use the chat. It is a global chat, and everyone will be able to read you. So if you experience any issues or have questions or just want to try it out, you can, of course, write something there. Yeah, one thing you can also see here, maybe I'm handing the virtual mic over to Niels, so he can explain a little bit about the one bot you can see here. So this is a bot, but it's motion captured and recorded. This is something we are currently working on. So maybe Niels wants to say.
Yeah, what you can see right here is like I just wrote a motion capture script for our Vive systems over here and our Oculus Touch system. So you can just like capture your basics, like your hands and your head movement. And I wrote another script which you can use to just replay this via Puppeteer, which is usually a software where you can like automate browsers and check websites, for example. But yeah, kannst du dich mal muten? But here it's used that we can replay an avatar. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, since the time is already yeah, moved forward, and we were starting a little late, so this was yeah, our little bit sped up short tour through the two parts of Das Haus so far. We are currently preparing our next iteration, which hopefully will be our first full-scale theater production. You know, as you probably mentioned, those were more like experimental first stages, you know, so also 0.1, 0.2, to have this constant sort of improvement, development, tryouts, which is more coming from software development or game development than theater. And we are planning our like a collaboration with Theater Bielefeld at the moment, and we want to create like a whole theater there and really use it as a theater, you know, like as a new stage where all sorts of productions can take place. Also like introductions to plays, talks, panels, musical performances, stuff like this. And we will also have one, or we are planning, it's not, yeah, we are trying to make it possible. We hope it will happen. We are also planning like a bigger production of Das Haus as a, yeah, sort of like virtual installation performance theater piece with the tools that we are constantly developing. And pretty much, you know, what you've seen so far in this really quick tour. In 0.1, we had a different focus than in 0.2, where we had another focus and made developments. So the next goal would be to bring those developments together, as well as everything that we newly developed since then, and yeah, create the next iteration.